Carson Beck, Ty Simpson, two rising stars for the 2026 NFL Draft quarterback class with first-round potential.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's a director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. QBs, guys. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks from week 6 for the 2026 NFL Draft and week 6 of college football. We're going to get into our quarterbacks of the week, those stock rising performances and those stock falling performances. So, Keith, let's start with the quarterback of the week. And I'm going to go to that Florida State-Miami matchup. You talked about Thomas Castellanos as kind of like a stock, there's a bag fumbler on yesterday's podcast. I'm going to go to the quarterback across from him, and that was Carson Beck. And I think, in this quarterback class with some of the other, the bigger, flashier names that just aren't playing to the caliber that people and everyone expected, Carson Beck is, to me, has flown under the radar. And outside of that Florida game, he's played very good football this year. 74% completion against Florida State, 241 yards passing, but 4 passing touchdowns in this game. He is operating the offense. We know he's accurate. We know he can anticipate throws. We saw all of that at Georgia. This feels like, to me, Keith, with this defense, with the run game, with the weapons that he has at his disposal, this feels like 2023 version of Carson Beck. And if that, we know that version of Carson Beck I believe they got to the CFP they got to, was it the SEC championship game? I think they might have got to the CFP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2023 Carson Beck was a guy that was in the mix for the 2025 QB1 coming into last season. And things just didn't work out the way we expected to. Like the timing and rhythm that he's playing with. Again, the confidence in this offense, knowing that, hey, I can run the ball. We can run the ball when we need to run the ball. I can get the play action going. I think Carson Beck, and I'll say this, Keith, might come as a bold statement. If anybody, outside of, a Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, we'll see what happens with John Mateer. He gets back in the lineup from that hand surgery. Carson Beck might be working his way into the first round for teams that need quarterbacks. And at the end of the day, my comp, I took flack for it when I said it last year. I'm gonna keep doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down. He is Jared Goff. He is Jared Goff, and he has more athleticism than Jared Goff. Jared Goff he has more arm strength, I would say, like being able to drive some of those middle of the field drive throws and stuff. Jared can rip those throws. You know what I mean? But when pressure gets back there, or you got to get 10 yards, 15 yards, I'm not expecting Jared Goff to get me many of those. But I know that Carson Beck he's functional as an athlete to do that. I think he's working himself in the first round. People may not want to talk about it right now because he's not flashy, but he's playing really good ball, man.
Yeah, so because I was going to bring that up in my conversation about Carson Beck anyway. So let's talk about the first round conversation. I think he's deserving, if they're going to be first round quarterbacks, he's deserving of a first round conversation. Mm-hmm. I wonder, DP, because we get to this is because the draft is very weird, right? And the NFL is very weird. They say they want sample size, but almost if you give them too much of a sample size, then they don't like it, which is what's the fine?
It's like the basketball thing with the NBA draft. It's like, oh, you're a senior, so that means you weren't good then. It was like, no, I stayed and got my degree. Like, what do you mean? It's just like they knock you for the same thing in basketball.
Yeah, but I'll say this I agree with you, DP. And just for statistics, I think he has 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the season. And not only that, DP, he's played good quality opponents thus far. Opening week, Notre Dame. He played a ranked USF. He played Florida, which has one of the better defenses, Texas, right? And then he played Florida State. And so he has 3 out of the 4 opponents, like a good 4 out of 5 opponents are good overall opponents, DP. So when I look at Carson Beck, I'm saying thus far, the questions we had with him was like, what version of Carson Beck are we going to get at Miami? He's passing those tests. He's answering those questions with a good Carson Beck. And I thought that game against Florida State was vintage Carson Beck. This was, like you said, 2023. And how many times did he hit a streaking wide receiver running up the seam route, right? Like those post routes, like coming off of play action. That's vintage Carson Beck. And you went with the Jared Goff comp, and I'm gonna go with the Derek Carr comp. And people can say they won and be like, oh, Derek Carr sucked. No, he had good years too, right? And so, sometimes that stuff just comes down to situations, coaching, and a bunch of different things. So I think we have him bracketed in the right bracket in the sense of the fact of, do we ever think he'll be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL? No, but you're drafting a quarterback. Your baseline, you want a guy that can start, right? That can play, and I think that can start being the baseline for Carson Beck overall. VP, my quarterback of the week, I'm gonna go with Ty Simpson. This is now back-to-back wins, right? He went into Georgia last week, had a big-time win and played great. I jumped into the film against Georgia, DP. Georgia consistently threw too high looks at him, cover 2, threw in some cover 4 and stuff like that. And it's almost like they dared him to push the ball vertical against Georgia. And he said, I will answer the dare, right? He had truth. He had truth for their dare. And he was a truth teller that game. And then you followed it up with this game, DP, and just the moxie. Listen, y'all lost to Vanderbilt. There's pressure, right? Like there is almost the Georgia game was almost no pressure, right? Because it's like, listen, we already lost to Florida State. Everybody hates us anyway. If we lose to Georgia, is at Georgia, top 5 team. It is what it is. But this game, coming off of beating Georgia, right? And then now the tables have turned to where you're supposed to win, right? Like there's pressure on you delivering, but your pressure on you delivering for a team like Vanderbilt who beat you last year. And the question is, are you going to get upset again, right? Is that going to be the thing? And Ty Simpson, he appears to be like when you just the captain of the boat, right? Like he's just he's cool, calm, and collected, right, all the time. And even you watch his post-game conferences and the conversation that he has, right? Like and he just seems like, listen, I'm gonna give, and he always say, I'm gonna give thanks to my teammates, my coaches, things like that. We're just trying to execute. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from Ty Simpson. And even, we tie this into the next segment to stock risers. He's a guy that's also rising for me too. So definitely I give Ty Simpson QB of the week.
No, he's played so well, man, and like he entered this game with no turnovers. He had that one pick and everything, early in that game, and then it's just like it was one of those bad decisions. Got out of the system, and he was fine after that. But he had a touchdown. It might have been to Ryan. It was to Ryan Williams. He ended up getting flushed out the pocket. He rolled to his right, and one of Vanderbilt's, I think, edge rushers was trailing him. And then he just kind of stopped on the dime, kind of back juked, let the guy roll by him, set his feet, and then delivered a strike in the back of the end zone to Ryan Williams. And that poise, Keith, that he plays with, it's just crazy for a guy that's not played much. Like he sat, waited his turn, learned on the bench behind guys. He plays with so much confidence and poise and control. And I'm just like, you would expect this from a 3-4 year starter. You know what I mean? Like, to be completely honest, I mean, sometimes beating the dead horse. You want to see this from Drew Aller. Like, you want to see that type of poise from Drew Aller instead of looking like a deer in headlights every time it's a big-time moment that you got to check off the box. Like, Ty Simpson is checking off the boxes. Now, it's only for his 5th start. You got to see how the rest of the season plays. But I'll say this, similar to Carson Beck, Keith, this trend continues for Carson Beck and for Ty Simpson. Because of course, with the Nussmeier, the Cade Klubnik, the Drew Allers, the Arch Mannings, those big name guys, the big 4, right? Everybody's like, because they didn't play well or haven't played well, the consensus is like, well, this quarterback class stinks. Now, Ty Simpson climbs, Carson Beck climbs, but Mendoza handles business. Dante Moore can. Now you got 4 potential first-round quarterbacks that NFL teams can say, you know what, their tape shows poise, accuracy, ball placement, quick decision-making, the mental aptitude that we look for, and some of the guys have more physical tools as well. I like what I'm seeing from these 2 quarterbacks who made the QBs of the week. These guys are trending up, and again, this continues. Ty Simpson might hear his name if he declares. We don't know, but if he declares, Keith, he might be a first-round pick when it's all said and done.
Yep, 100% with DP. Let's do this, man. We picked our quarterback of the week. Let's talk about the quarterbacks that are rising overall, right? Which guys are having good performances consistently. We're trying to find these quarterbacks, man. We need to find the quarterbacks. We found a couple. We're going to talk about them coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. And one thing that I think we all will love, one of my favorite parts, Prize Picks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup together. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineups. Prize Picks is good to be right. Stock rising performances for the quarterbacks for the 2026 NFL Draft. Keith, I've talked about this young man a couple times on this show, but he is just another guy that I said Carson Beck feels like he's flying under the radar. I feel like Sawyer Robertson is completely flying under the radar
too. Yep.
I feel like he is flying so far under the radar. I don't know what he has to do at this point. I look at their schedule in a minute, but against Kansas State in that game, we talked about Michael Trigg and what he did, and there was a 1-point victory for Baylor in that game at home. Sawyer Robertson played well. He was 25 of 39, 64% completion percentage, 345 yards passing. He had 2 passing touchdowns as well in this game. And we know that he can run the ball too, but that's the crazy thing, Keith. Last year he had over 300 yards rushing. I don't think he might not even get close to that this year. He's not using his legs like he did last year to create and to they're not even calling design plays for him as a runner either at 6'4", 220 pounds. Like this is a big kid at quarterback, man. And I just think at the end of the day, not saying he's training to be a first round pick, but I keep going back to 2025. The New Orleans Saints select Tyler Shough top 40. He was a 40th pick in the draft, right? We saw Dylan Gabriel go round 3, and he was an undersized quarterback with limited physical tools. When you look at a guy that's the offense, for an offense that doesn't run the ball enough, they're really putting it all on you to throw the ball 40 times, 39 times a game, and for you to consistently play the way he's playing. Like Sawyer Robertson deserves more love and more credit, Keith. And I just pulled up their schedule. They got their next game. They got 2 games on the road. They go to TCU, to Cincinnati. They have UCF. They host UCF. They host Utah. They go to Arizona, and then they host Houston. They got 2 losses on the schedule. They could run the rest of the table, and they might find themselves in the Big 12 championship game. And then who knows what happens after that? You might be one of those teams while everybody else beats some of themselves in the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the ACC probably only gets 1 team in. You might be, we might get 2 Big 12 teams in and things like that. But so shout out to Sawyer Robertson, man. I like what he's doing. He's playing good ball this year, flying under the radar.
Yeah, no, and I said I was gonna go there because when you look at it, DP, even on the season, he's playing well. I think he's sitting at 19 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but also he already eclipsed the 2,000-yard mark, right? And we're not even halfway through the season. So you're talking about a guy he's on track to finish with 4,000 yards and almost 40 touchdowns.
Right.
It like that's big time, right? And so when you look at the size, DP, there's something about Sawyer Robertson that I want to buy into. When I watch him play the game of football, there's something about him that I want to buy into. So I'm all on board with you as a stock up guy. Let's do this. And I say this with a full understanding and context, right? But I'm going to give our guy a little credit. Cade Klubnik, right?
I thought about that too.
The reason I said context was because he went against North Carolina and
North Carolina.
Bill Belichick and I think that was their third game that they lost by over 25 points.
Jesus.
It's interesting to see them be one of the worst teams in college football. They talk about North Carolina, but I'll stay on a positive track with K. Club. Went 22 or 24, four passing touchdowns, and this is our last glimmer of hope, DP. And what I'm hoping is this is the turnaround game, because if
Sam.
to our everydayers who have followed us and listened to us, preseason, early on in the season, we've consistently said in our K Klubnik reports, this is a guy that is streaky. He's streaky bad, he's streaky good. So hopefully he got the bad out, and then now we're turning the corner to streaky good, right? And we start to get some good K Klubnik, because while he may have never been, people that, some people viewed him as this, some people didn't, as the best quarterback in the class. Can you play yourself into that? I'm gonna just use what you said, that Tyler Shuck role, to where you're a second rounder, right? Can you play yourself into a third rounder like Jalen Milroe, right, with the Seattle Seahawks? So I'm looking at Cade Klubnik, and I'm definitely giving him a stock rise or a stock up, because it was against North Carolina, but you did what you had to do. You was highly efficient, 22 or 24.
Yeah, no, I thought about him as well. I was just like, kind of, I was actually on the road traveling back from, moving things from the old house to the new house, and I was like, I checked the score and I was like, what is going on in this game? And I looked at the stats and I was like, and I kind of pulled it, I had it up playing through the speaker in the car. Take a couple of glances, safety on the road. Can't look at the game while I'm driving. But I was like, okay, like he looked confident. And what's crazy, Keith? It looked like a team that had a game plan. They couldn't run the ball. They didn't run the ball a ton, but they got the ball out quick. They were able to, really like find rhythm. And I was like, wow, it took you 6 weeks to get that, and coming off a bye to find that rhythm in the passing game. But I feel the same way you do. Hopefully this is the game, the turnaround game, where it's like, you know what, Cade, like you go out here and for those who want to know Clemson's schedule, they go on the road against Boston College next week. They got SMU at home. They have Duke at home. And Keith, remember I said at the beginning of the season, Duke will not be an easy out. Darian Mensah is playing high-level football, and if you don't get back there, that Peter Woods and TJ Parker don't get back there to affect him, this young man might slice them up, man, like straight up. So you got SMU at home, you got Duke at home, you have Florida State at home. Now, you might say, well, that's good. Not really, because the fact that Clemson has not really protected home field at all this year. Two of their three losses came at home, LSU and Syracuse. But
and hey, if you lost to Troy,
right? So, like, you could legitimately, if you run the next three off, you go to Louisville, who's playing high-level football, you finish with Furman, and then you go on the road to South Carolina, to Columbia, South Carolina. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? Maybe you are in the ACC championship game because Florida State's starting to sputter and stuff like that. They might have a chance, Keith, but at the end of the day, you hope that this is the game that allows you to see the middle and the back end of the season of Cade Klubnik last year. Can we get that? Now, what that would then say is that you just don't start fast. That's a problem. Like, you know what I mean? We can't try to dig ourselves out of holes every time, but definitely happy for him. Keith, I'm gonna go to I think I talked about Texas Tech's edge rusher David Bailey yesterday. I want to talk about that quarterback, Baron Morton, 6'2", 210. I think this guy's been in Texas Tech for a minute, since like 2021. This is like, I think, redshirt senior year. I think he redshirted as a freshman. In 2024, he threw for over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. This year, he's got 12 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And against Houston on the road, he was 28 of 39, 72% completion, 345 yards passing, and a passing touchdown in this game. He also suffered, like, the receivers dropped 5 of his passes. So his numbers could have been even better if they had the hold on all those throws. This is a guy that in this air raid offense, he slings the rock, man. He slings it. All 3 levels. He's going to push the ball down the field. He's going to try and drive it. He's going to get it underneath. I feel like this is one of those guys, Keith, that we fast forward to postseason after the CFP, whether it's Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl, and people are like, man, like that Texas Tech quarterback, like this guy you might want to go ahead and draft round 4 and just stash him and see what you can develop into, what he could develop into off your bench.
Yeah, and we had to remember, and we mentioned his name again, DP. At this point last year, nobody was talking about Tyler Shep. Like, he
Not a
was
soul.
completely off the radar, right? So that's why we're bringing these quarterbacks. And before we transition, I'm gonna bring up one other guy, DP, Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer, playing highly efficient football thus far through the season, has 12 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Playing really good football. Has, they lost to Indiana. That was a blowout game, which interestingly enough, he didn't have an interception in that game,
It
which was
wasn't his fault.
yeah, that's
It wasn't his fault.
basically what he said. It wasn't my fault. And then USC, they beat USC. That was not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before that.
Yeah.
So big time. He has a couple big time wins on there, and he beat Duke, DP. 45-19, had a 3 touchdown performance. So just wanted to mention Luke Altmyer as a guy that we're probably going to have to continue to pay attention to in this quarterback class moving forward. But DP, man, we talked about the guys that went up, the guys that elevated their draft stock, the quarterbacks. Now we're going to talk about a couple quarterbacks, man, that are slowly falling down the draft boards. Let's have that conversation coming up next.
Mazda crash cards for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. And Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything, but from smooth handling to intuitive controls, and with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through any season. And like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Keith, the stock falling performances, and it's crazy because this guy's really helped the program that he's at. But again, sometimes you write checks that you don't got the funds to cash, and that is Diego Pavia for me, Keith. And it's weird because I was out, and you tell me how you feel about him. I was always kind of on the fence with him as a prospect. I was like, I feel like he's draftable. You know what I mean? It's 7 rounds. I feel like he's draftable for sure. Good athlete. He's tough. He's gritty. I feel like he's efficient in the quick game and things like that. Physically limited, I think, arm talent wise. I got to do a full deep dive. I never really was wowed by his arm watching them play live, but against against Bama, he just it was not a good showing, Keith. Like, it was not a good showing at all. And I think for me is, again, to make the statement you made, like to say, oh yeah, like if we play our game, it won't be close. And you know what? It wasn't close, brother. It wasn't close for you because like Bama started to pull away, and Ty Simpson thoroughly outplayed him in this game. You know what I mean? Thoroughly outplayed him. He was 21 of 35, 60% completion percentage, 202 yards passing. His yards per attempt were 5.8. He had that one passing touchdown. He had an interception in this game. He put the ball in harm's way. He had like 3 turnover-worthy plays in this game. Where it was a couple throws where I'm just like, you can't make that throw.
There were huge red zone opportunities, right? The interception was in the red zone, I think, by Keon Sabb, the safety from Alabama, and then he had the fumble, which was also in the red zone. So you're talking about potentially that's 14 points, right? That's a totally different ball game. Even if you convert like a touchdown and a field goal, right? It's still a 10-point difference going the other way. So I agree with you. I think look at Diego, it kind of came off to like undersized quarterback prospect, right? Like that. That's kind of how it came off, and I respect the hell out of his game because he's a baller, right? Like he plays like he's
tough
a guy
as nails.
Yeah, I would still want him, right? Like playing college football, but when we're talking about projecting to the NFL, you like, man, is there simply a threshold for this?
Like what he seems like to me is that he seems like a guy that can come in, like he'll be a good backup, right? I think he'll be a good backup. He's gonna learn your system. he's going to be a leader in the locker room, an energy guy. And if your starter for some reason goes down, misses a game for a game, you will feel comfortable enough that he could be a spot starter for you. You just don't see a long-term starter with him and things of that nature. Got to probably be whatever team he gets drafted by, what team he's on. He's going to play a lot in the preseason. He's going to do a lot of good things in the preseason and everything. I just don't see a long-term starter with him. And but I respect his game. I respect what he does at the college level. He has helped build up the Vanderbilt program to where I think that they should be able to maintain this success with recruiting and transfer portal and all of that. But as a prospect, yeah, he's probably going to be a graded day 3 prospect overall for me.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, it's because of the physical tools. And I'll say this, they obviously playing in the SEC, they still have more big time matchups, right?
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to continue to upset some teams because I have that much respect for him as a quarterback.
Next game is at home with LSU coming in. Next 2 games at home, LSU and Missouri.
I think they have a bye. LSU's playing South Carolina next week, I think. And then
this a stretch, Keith. That's a stretch. LSU, Missouri, go on the road to play Texas, host Auburn, Kentucky's. Then you go on the road to Tennessee. That's a stretch. Like that's a tough stretch to have the back end of your schedule looks like that. Yeah, somebody's gonna get upset. I wouldn't be surprised if they upset Missouri, to be honest with you. I think I think they beat Kentucky. They could upset Missouri. But
I have a question. How you feel about the LSU game?
LSU's coming off a bye.
No. LSU. I think
did they play Saturday?
I thought they don't play South Carolina this upcoming week. I think Vandy might have a bye.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Vandy has a bye. I think LSU's coming off of. I think LSU and South Carolina both coming off byes from week 6.
They play each other this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, they played each other. I think that's a game where the main thing I think that they could give LSU some trouble. I think it's going to be hard for them to throw the ball against that secondary.
Okay.
I think as long as that front 7, like Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins, those 2 dudes are going to neutralize Diego Pavia. Neutralize his legs and his rushing ability, make him throw against Mansour Delane, who I continue to say, guys, he's until we see Jamar McCoy come back healthy and play ball and play at a high level. Yeah, Mansour Delane might be my CB1 right now. Like this dude's playing outstanding ball. He's not letting many balls get caught in his area. So yeah, I think they could give him some trouble. As long as that front 7 do their job, I don't think Diego and that receiving core is going to have enough ability to get down the field and attack those DBs.
Yep. Well, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.